The important thing to remember is that we are fighting this and we will continue fighting HS2 and we can win. But to win, we need everybody's support, and that means everybody from in here. The essential thing about Stop HS2 is it's not just a few people standing on a platform like this. It's made up of everybody in this room. Everyone who's wearing a Stop HS2 t-shirt today, you're part of Stop HS2. Everyone who's signed a petition, everyone who's gone on a march, everyone who's done any one of a number of things towards the aim of getting HS2 stopped, you're all part of Stop HS2, because that's what it needs. It needs numbers to get it stopped. This particular session is about the story so far, and as far as I'm concerned, the story goes right back to a Thursday lunchtime in 2010 when I happened to be watching the news. And it said there's going to be a high-speed railway. And I said, oh, that's interesting. I wonder where it's going. So I did what I often do when that comes down. I went on the internet and I had a look. And I said, oh, it's going somewhere near Aylesbury. And I live somewhere near Aylesbury. And then I drilled down and I went and I found the actual maps. And I said, it's going to go past my village. I wonder if the parish council knows. And I thought that was going to be about the limit of my involvement. I rang the chair of the parish council and told him about it. By the end of the next week, I had got involved with a very small group of people, none of whom I've met before, and we were organising a meeting for our MP, who was John Burko. And we'd never met each other. We started organising this meeting without having met each other, but we all had a common goal. We wanted to get lots of people along to this meeting. And I think that typifies what this whole thing has come to be about. It's groups of people who've come together for a common goal. And our common goal was subsequently become to be stopping HS2. But we didn't realise it then, because we thought it was just, we assumed that the government knew what it was talking about. And it was only when a lot of different people looked at a lot of different things that we realised that actually the whole thing didn't stack up. And I'm sure you've heard all the arguments about the time on trains. I came up by train yesterday and I was working on a train, and there are loads of other people around me working on trains. After that first meeting in Quainton, I helped to organise another meeting in Quainton, which was for people who wanted a bit more involved on the national side of things. And that was the first of many meetings which are still going on. Shortly after that, we realised that if we were actually going to stop HS2, what we needed was someone who was going to run a national campaign. And I said to Joe Rukin and Lizzie Williams that, yeah, I'd help them set up that. We proposed something to one of the next meetings of the activists, and everyone said, yes, that's a good idea, go away and set it up. So I thought then that I was just going to carry on doing it for a little bit longer. But as you can see from the fact I'm here now, that I'm still involved. But going back to 2010, we did several things that year. The first one, and I think that was the biggest one, was Lizzie Williams said that she was going to walk from Birmingham to London. And that really caught people's imagination, because I know how far it is from Birmingham to London, and I couldn't walk that far. And I think a lot of people, well, everybody almost, has an idea of what an effort that is. And so when they saw that someone like Lizzie was willing to do it, they knew that this was something that mattered a lot. And it was something that they really ought to get involved in looking at further. So Lizzie's walk had two effects. It got the press interested, and it got a lot of more people interested as well. The second thing we did, or the second thing that I'm going to mention, is we held a lobby day in Parliament. And for those of you who don't know, and I didn't know when I started organising this, it was a lobby day is when MPs and constituents get together and they can talk about an issue of importance. And from that lobby day in Parliament, we got, Stop HS2 got invited to go and talk to the Transport Select Committee. And that was the first time that MPs who were off the route, who were interested in transport, actually started looking at the arguments. And they realised that there were arguments against HS2, and we're still working on persuading some of them, but some of them are much more attuned to the fact that HS2 is not necessarily a good idea. The third thing we did that year was that we had a series of demonstrations. And Philip Hammond was coming round to talk. Philip Hammond was the Secretary of State for Transport at the time, and he went round to talk to people in different constituencies affected. So we organised demonstrations, and this was the time when I really started to realise the power of having lots of different people working together. I was told this was the first time I'd been involved in a demonstration. I'd never actually been to a demonstration before, and I was already starting to organise one. And someone said to me, "You'll need to make sure there's placards." And I went, "Placards? I have got no idea what to do with a placard. I know how to hold it. I just didn't know how to make one." So I emailed round to a group of people, and I was surprised at how many people said, "Yes, I can make a placard. I can help stop HS2 that way." And so there they were making placards. And that was something that they could do. I couldn't do it. They could do it. And it was the way that they got involved. So we had quite a few successes in 2010. The next year, 2011, we had our first convention. So I know some of you came to that convention. For the people who didn't, I hope you find this is beneficial as that first convention. And after these sessions, you'll be able to go on and have a look around the exhibition and so on. The second thing we did shortly after the convention was the consultation was announced about HS2. And the very first day of the consultation, the day it was announced, local action groups and Stop HS2 organised a series of bonfires. And that was really good because there were bonfires all along the line. Lots of people got involved, even if they weren't particularly involved in the rest of the campaign. Everybody likes a bonfire. And in February, there's not many going on. So we had lots of people taking part in their local areas. We had the consultation, and along with the consultation, we had a number of the no-show tents that went round. Every time HS2 Limited were having a road show, there was a tent there. They were organised by local action groups. We provided a tent. We provided some of the leaflets. The local action groups provided people to man the tent on the day, and every no-show was a bit different, but every no-show was really appreciated by the people in the area. We also managed to get 108,000 signatures on a petition, which we took to Downing Street in October. And the other thing we did was we had a protest song, and I was really chuffed at that because we had our own protest song. It was a band called Dirty Mavis, and we had the idea that we could try and get this in the charts. What we hadn't realised was that we were up against two things. The first was, because it was a political song, we didn't get radio airtime, which does make it a bit tricky. And the other thing was we were up against the Military Wives Choir. And I'm quite willing to take on the government, but I'm not going to take on the army. So they got to number one slot and we didn't. I could go on and on about lots of different things we did, but we spent most of 2012 waiting for the Y route announcement. And if you've only just come into the campaign because of hearing about the Y route, that was delayed time and time again. And when you hear Patrick McLaughlin talking about he wants to crack on with the railway, they've spent a long time just sort of peddling their wheels and not getting anywhere very fast. So that was supposed to be sort of fairly early on in 2012, and then it got put back and put back and put back again, and it didn't happen till this year. Meanwhile, in Parliament, we were doing various things like the Public Accounts Committee, which is a committee of MPs. They had an investigation into HS1, and we said, well, HS1, it's a bit different from HS2, but have a look at these problems with HS2 and see how they compare to the problems with HS1. And that, again, is a sign of how a small thing can have a big effect. Because Stop HS2 submitted a submission to their inquiry, and I have to put it to Margaret Hodge, who's the chair of the Public Accounts Committee. It was almost as if she had read all the questions in our report and asked them. And that was when we found out that HS2 had this amber red warning. And now they've had 3 consecutive amber red warnings, and we still haven't seen the reports that go back to it. So we've had lots of people asking for those reports, submitting freedom of information requests. And we're still hammering on MPs and the Cabinet Office to get that information out. I'm not going to spend too long talking about what we've been doing in the last sort of year or so, because more people are involved in it. I thought the important thing, perhaps, was to go right back to the beginning, back to a time when perhaps not so many people knew what was going on, and to cover what was going on there. But when it comes down to it, I want everyone to remember that Stop HS2 is not just one or two people writing reports or organising demonstrations or organising things like today. Stop HS2 is everybody in this room. It's everybody who's fighting HS2, and we all appreciate everything that you're doing.